Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. The last time that you have seen me make a standalone YouTube video like this, it was a while ago. And I've been waiting for something to happen that would give me a confirmation of where I thought we were going or a shift in perspective with that. And I would say that a shift in perspective has happened. Now, I don't want to give you any kinds of alarms or anything like that. It's just, in this world of information, there's a sea of information. I'm trying to gather as much data as possible, and I want to present that to you. And the reason that you'll see why I have the numbers 2019, as in the year 2019, on this screen here in a few minutes. So let's take care of all this, but before we dive on in, I do want to remind you, this is not financial advice. This video is for entertainment purposes only. Please do your own research. I am not a financial advisor. And while I appreciate that so many of you are hopping in here from all over the place, you've got to hit that subscribe button. I am going live multiple times a week. I've cut down on the videos, but you can see me live Monday, Wednesday through Friday, Monday, Wednesday through Fridays. So hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification button as well. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive on into this. And so here is my change of perspective. I made some videos about alt season, and I want to tell you straight up, I was wrong. I was wrong about at least about the timing. And then when I was talking about alt season, I was talking about it in the terms of the alt season. Okay, do I believe that we will see some kind of rally in alts in 2024? As of right now, I very much do. Is this the alt season that we're looking for? That's where I've had a bit of a change of perspective. We can see lots of invalidations in the charts that I showed you in those videos, and that's what we've been looking for. Invalidations, they have come, so it's time to move on with new information. Not just new information from the charts, but new information that I'll present later. I do want to share with you my exit strategy. I did post this on my X and TikTok accounts. The X one would be the easiest to get through. If you are on the desktop, go to www.bitcoin on X. So my 2024 exit strategy. I believe that we will see new all-time highs in crypto by the end of this year, but I believe that this will be a peak similar to March and not the absolute peak. Okay, so when does the absolute peak come? We'll talk about that soon, all right? 90%. I will be 90% most likely out of crypto unless there's new information that comes. I will be 90% out of crypto within 2 to 4 months, not after the halving. I don't know why I put after the halving. After the first Federal Reserve rate cuts. 2 to 4 months. The first rate cut is most likely going to be in September of this year. Within 2 to 4 months, I will be 90% out of crypto. And then I believe 2025 will be a brutal year. And I'm going to show you some charts that will communicate why I believe 2025 is going to be a brutal year. And to the point where I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of crypto content creators who are very much devoted to four-year halving cycle theory where they get wrecked and maybe they leave crypto altogether. I don't know, but I'll still be here, hopefully. And then my plan is to wait for rates to go to zero, and then I'll go all in. And then that's going to be, in my opinion, the best buying opportunity of this decade. And then we're going to see crypto moon. But I'm talking about 2026, and here we are in 2024. You don't want to hear that. Well, I'm going to say it anyway. There's going to be euphoria. There is going to be euphoria. Straight up Wall Street psychology euphoria, there's going to be euphoria. But I don't think we're there yet. And I don't think we're going to get to that level of euphoria that we saw in 2017, 2018, or May of 2025. I don't think we're getting there in 2024. There will be a peak similar to March, but not the peak. And so 2019, here's what I'm looking at. 2019. Let me back up for a second. The reason why I thought that alt season was coming is because I was looking at the alt charts, believe it or not, and I was seeing a lot of differences between then and 2019. I was seeing alts do much more significant retraces. The total 2 crypto market cap only did a 236 retrace in 2019, while Bitcoin rallied from $3,000 to $14,000, almost a 5x. The altcoin market cap didn't really do all that much the whole time. But as I was postulating, that none of that happened until January of 2021, the altcoins blowing through all those retraces. And so what happened after January 2021, we got through full-blown alt season by May of 2021, and it was over. That's why I thought alt season was imminent. But with this, when I was talking about that, I always had 2019 in the back of my mind, and there were other people in this space who were talking about this rally, this Bitcoin rally from $15,000 up to $74,000 being very similar to 2019. The big difference being that alts did much better in early 2024 than alts did in 2019. And so this was always in the back of my mind. And if you're looking at 2019, big run up, very similar to earlier this year, and then a grind down, and then a move up, but then the COVID crash. And so what are we going to do with that? Well, we'll see. And then a V-shaped recovery after the COVID crash. And so here's what 2019 looked like. This is all throughout 2016 to present day. But look at 2019. Rates were rising. They peaked at the bear market bottom in 2018, and then they were flat. And while rates were flat in 2018, does this look familiar? Bitcoin rallied from $3,000 all the way up to $14,000. But altcoins didn't do all that much. This time around, rates rose very aggressively. And then when rates flattened last year around this time, Bitcoin rallied from $25,000 all the way up to $73,800 during the flat period. But then the Federal Reserve when was that in 2019? I believe that was July or September. They started lowering rates, and that was pretty much the end for that bull run. And then look what happened. The Bitcoin grinded down, and then went to COVID crash levels, and then rates were at zero. So then rates were at zero. Bitcoin went to $3,000, and rates were at zero. All this liquidity was fed into the market, and Bitcoin rallied from $3,000 all the way up to $69,000. So we are on the wrong side of this as of right now when it comes to rates. Just like in 2019, we had a nice rally during the pause, but then during the downtrend, Bitcoin went down from $14,000 down to $3,000. All right, so you're going to say the COVID crash. It wouldn't have happened without the COVID crash. Actually, I think the COVID crash just accelerated the inevitable, that Bitcoin would have gotten down to maybe not $3,000 because that was absolute panic, but maybe $4,000 or $5,000. I really am convinced that Bitcoin would have gotten down there if it wasn't for the without the COVID crash. But it would have been a lot longer. It would have taken a lot longer of a time. So maybe by October of 2020, Bitcoin would have bottomed out, and then maybe rates would have been at zero, and then off to the races after that. So this is very similar to every time the Fed has raised rates and then paused, we'd see a rally in the markets, and then they started lowering rates. Why would they lower rates? Because a recession was coming. They could see that. And then what happened after they lower rates? Recession. But then rates are down, and they're bottomed out. And then there's room for the stock market to rally. This is historically because, crypto didn't exist back then. And same deal, Bitcoin, pretty much its entire existence up to 2015, only existed in a rate level near zero, at or near zero. And so that was room for it to thrive. And then rates rose, and recession in 2020, that would have been a much broader recession if it wasn't for the COVID crash. And so now what? Now what do we do? Well, worst case scenario, this is exactly like 2019. $73,800 was the peak for 2024 and likely 2025, and altcoins have peaked. That's the worst case scenario. Why I do not believe that this is the worst case scenario, because if it's the worst case scenario, we're just going to continue to go down. Bitcoin's going to continue to go down. Altcoins are going to continue to go down. Well, here's the difference between 2019 and 2024. 2019 was pre-halving, 2024 is post-halving. I reject firmly four-year halving cycle theory. I believe it's possible, but as of right now, I reject it. But I do believe in the supply crunch caused by the halving. I reject much of four-year halving cycle theory, but I do believe genuinely that there is a supply crunch caused by the halving that is bullish, not bearish. 2019 was pre-halving. There were 1,800 Bitcoin mined per day in 2019. 2024 being post-halving, we're down to 450 Bitcoin mined per day. Number two, 2024 is an election year. People always give that objection. It's an election year. It's an election year. Yeah, I mean, 2008 and 2000 were election years. That didn't stop what was happening in the economy at that time. But it is an election year. There is usually an attempt to prop things up to make the incumbent look good. I mean, do they want to make Joe Biden look good? I don't know. But also, Donald Trump likely winning the election is short-term bullish for stocks and crypto. And then I think probably the biggest point that I could give you right now is faith in the US dollar is much lower than it was in 2019. I've talked about on my channel many times. 2020 was an inflection point in the overall general public's faith in the US dollar. We know now in 2019, I can't believe this was even reality, but I was perfectly fine with holding dollars in the bank for a long period of time. That changed in 2020. In 2024, I have no desire to hold this melting ice cube known as the US dollar in the bank. So what does that mean? That means that people aren't as likely to flee to the US dollar. They're going to flee somewhere else. People will flee to the dollar, but some won't. So I do not believe this is the worst case scenario. So back to this chart here. We did actually, let me move forward to this chart. This is the Dow Jones in 2007, from 2007 to 2012. I really want to look at 2007, 2008. The Fed lowered rates. If you can follow my mouse right about here, there was that red candle in July, green candle. Right around that green candle is when the Fed first lowered rates. They first lowered rates. Let's go back to that chart. Right around here. I'm sorry if you're just listening and not watching, but they first lowered rates, and we saw the Dow Jones rally to a new all-time high, barely a new all-time high for a 2-month period, a new all-time high. That is what I think is going to happen, but look at what happened after. And that's what I do believe is in store for after the Federal Reserve cuts rates for the Dow Jones, for the NASDAQ, and for crypto. And then Lehman happened in August. The Fed lowered rates to 0 and introduced quantitative easing, but we didn't know what quantitative easing was at the time. And so it took another 6 months to bottom out, March of 2009, and then we were off to the races and never looked back. Now that we know what quantitative easing is, I don't think that we would then go to this bottoming out, but like something like this right here would be the bottom. And how long did that take? This last wick right here is about November of 2008. So when most people are saying that Bitcoin is going to be well over $100,000, I think it's going to be much lower than where it is today. But, in between now and then, Fed lowers rates, rally to new all-time highs. Donald Trump gets elected, maybe even another rally to new all-time highs, But regardless, I am 90% out of crypto within 2 to 4 months after the Fed lowers rates. Why won't? Now, here's an objection. Why won't Q4 of 2024 to Q2 of 2025 be like Q4 of 2020 to Q2 of 2021? I actually did already answer this question. Forgive me, I'm a little bit rushed, a little bit disorganized, but things have flipped. Things are entirely different than they were in Q4 of 2020 and 2021. Q4 of 2020, 2021. If you see my mouse right about here, in Q2 to Q2 of 2021, excuse me. 0 rates, money injected, stimulus, all of that. Quantitative easing, no tightening, Fed adding to their balance sheets. Q4 of 2024, Fed's a little bit lower, 25 basis points lower than where they are now. The Fed removing $25 billion a month as of right now from their balance sheet. It's insane to me that people are out there saying that Bitcoin's going to do what Bitcoin did in the fourth quarter of 2020. It's not happening. We'll have a little bit of a rally, and then it's going to be over. But then where's Bitcoin going to be when we have the Lehman of 2025, which I believe will happen? Under $30,000? I think so. Somebody during my live stream today asked me if it was going to be under $20,000, if I thought it was going to be under $20,000. I paused for about 5 seconds and I said yes. But okay, remember, rates at zero, COVID crash, Bitcoin down to $3,000, went up to $69,000. All right, rates at zero after having been up this high, rates at or near zero, quantitative easing, Bitcoin, let's say Bitcoin's at $20,000. $20,000, where does it rally to after it's down to $20,000? I would say much, much higher than $69,000. Again, we went from $3,000 when rates were at zero to $69,000. Rates at zero, Bitcoin at $20,000, $25,000, I don't know. Rates at zero, we're going much higher than $69,000. So in my opinion, you should have some cash on the sidelines by the end of 2025. But, you know, someone on my live stream today told me Raoul Pal disagrees with me, and he's directionally right, and that's true. You know, there are a lot of people who are smarter than I am who disagree with me. Maybe I'm wrong for all of this. I'm just trying to present the information that I'm seeing the best way I can see it, and I am very uncomfortable with this idea that people are calling for the same old with Bitcoin when conditions are not the same, when the conditions are the same as 2019, not 2020 and 2021. So anyway, that is all I have for today. I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful rest of your week. I will certainly be seeing you in another video. Peace.